I don't know. Figure out, maybe have Jay do some bikini modeling. I don't know. We'll figure out something with the live devices, tablets, desktop, old school, whatever. We appreciate you hanging in with us here on the game. All right, like so we said last night, the women with an easy W got out to an 11-point lead after the first quarter, up 48-22 at the half. Missouri never scored over 17 points in a quarter. Yeah, just a tough road for the Tigers last night. In South Carolina, Malaysia Fawali went nuts. 19 points, 8 of 18 from the floor, hit a couple threes, 1 or 2 from the line, throw in 4 assists. Just you can see it game to game. And what Dawn talks about is how much she's impressed with Fawali's defense, how it's gotten so much better. Because Dawn would even say there are times I didn't put her on the court because she wasn't doing what I needed her to do on the defensive end of the court. But now Fawali is grinding on D. Offensively, 19 points in 23 minutes. They took 18 shots to get the 19 points. You'd like a little bit more efficiency, but you see the talent with Fawali. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to go, man, she's good. So Fawali with 19. Chloe Kitts looks like she's back to full strength after being sick. She had 12. Watkins with 9. Nice balanced effort. Dana Paopao, 2 of 4 from 3 with 6. Paopao, early in the year, I don't think she missed a shot. She was making everything. 3s, 2s, free throws. She's cooled off a bit here lately, so it was nice to see her. And she only took 4 shots last night, but hitting 2 of 4 from 3. 6 points in the game. Raven Johnson, solid floor game with 8 rebounds, a couple assists, 4 steals. So just an easy run for South Carolina last night in their victory over a struggling Missouri squad who fell to 2-8 in conference and 11-12 overall. And we forgot to mention Bree Hall goes 5 of 10 from the floor, scoring 10 points in the game as well. And Fagan off the bench with 11, a very efficient 11, going to the free throw line 6 times, also 5 boards. South Carolina, 47 rebounds in the game compared to 33 for Missouri. And like usual, the Gamecocks, pretty good job of sharing the ball, 19 assists on 35 made buckets. So, easy roll all around for the South Carolina women. UConn will be a test, especially without Camila Cardoza. But South Carolina is just deeper and better than UConn. Could UConn get you? Sure. They got players. Paige Beckers is still there. They've got other highly talented, what the hell does that mean? Highly touted players. So, UConn's dangerous. But I think South Carolina at home can handle their business against UConn on Sunday. Again, you can hear that right here, 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock tip. South Carolina and UConn women going at it at CLA. And we'll get some sound from the coaches and players from last night's game here in just a little bit. All right, obviously Sunday also this thing called the Super Bowl. That'll be happening. We'll talk about it through the show. And it's interesting. And look, the 49ers are my second favorite team. So obviously I'll be rooting for them on Sunday. I like the Chiefs. I'm not, I'm tired of the Chiefs. Oh, my God, the Chiefs again. Anybody but the Chiefs. I'm tired of Patrick Mahomes' family. I'm tired of Travis Kelce and this Taylor Swift nonsense. I'm tired of it. Tired. I'm not like that. I like the Chiefs. It's just, again, the 49ers are my second favorite team. It feels like this week, and maybe because we're sitting in a town that isn't an NFL town, it's a college football, college basketball, college baseball town. Maybe it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of juice going for this one. It's a rematch of a game of 4 years ago. It was a good game. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not feeling the pulse of this correctly. But there's going to be 90 trillion people watching it. Because it's not a game. It's an event. It's a happening. It's a party. It's a get-together. It's a thing. So people are going to watch, and it has nothing to do with, how interested they are in the game. Some people are like, I'm just here for the commercials. I'm just here for the halftime show. I'm just here to, mooch free food and beer. But it will be the highest rated TV show of the year. It just will be. But it feels like on the football side of this, it doesn't feel as much. I don't know. It just hasn't sparked like I thought it would. And I thought it would. The 49ers, the 1 seed out of the NFC. The Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions, looking to do something that hasn't been done since the early New Millennium Patriots. Go back to back. So I thought there'd be something more to this. You've got stars in the game. You got Mahomes, obviously Kelsey. 49ers have high-level guys that people know, whether it's Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. There's the Nick Bosa to a point. Then, you have a little bit of the controversy of Brock Purdy. Is Brock Purdy just a game manager? Is that a terrible thing to say about somebody? Is calling an NFL quarterback a game manager like, calling a perspective, calling like a person after a first date? Well, they had a good personality and they're a good cook. I don't know. But there's things here where I thought there would be more, there'd be more yap about the game. And maybe there is, and I'm just missing it. Because I'm up in my cave on the 19th floor here, so I don't get out much anymore. But I think it's an interesting game for those angles. I do. I think that, if Kansas City wins, that's 3 titles in, a 5-year span. That's like dynasty material. I mean, the Steelers did that in the 70s. The Cowboys did that in the 90s. The 49ers, for all the championships, didn't do 3 in a 5-year span. So I just think that what Kansas City would accomplish, that's rare air to be in. And the 49ers they've been to a Super Bowl, multiple NFC championship games under Kyle Shanahan. They've been really close, but they can't get over the hump. And then you have the Mahomes. And the one I think is really funny that's entertaining me, and I laugh like that when I'm entertained, is this whole comparison to Mahomes and Brady. Because everyone's dying for the next, and I'll use this, I never use this, but I'll use it for this purpose. The next GOAT, right? Everybody's dying for the next one. We're always trying to identify the next one. Oh, that guy's on a path to pass, Michael Jordan or Brady or whoever you think the greatest of all time is. And, yeah, if you look at the first 5 years of their careers, yeah, Mahomes is ahead of Brady. Not 5 years, first, 6, 7 years now of Mahomes' career? His arc in a lot of ways is passing Brady. Look, Patrick Mahomes is phenomenal. Old Pat's got a long way to go to get to Brady status. He just does. But that's been a thing. I think it's just reaching for a thing. But people have talked about that. So the dynamic is, to me, interesting in many levels. And Andy Reid has gone from, yeah, he's a really good coach, but he can't win a Super Bowl, to, wow, Andy Reid could win his 3rd Super Bowl. It's unreal. Look, Donovan McNabb was a really good quarterback. I'm not taking anything away from Donovan McNabb. Alex Smith was a good quarterback. Not great, good. But when you get a generational talent like Patrick Mahomes, a historic generational talent, and it's not the only reason, but it's the main reason, all of a sudden Andy Reid's a genius. He went from a really good coach who couldn't win a Super Bowl to, man, that guy's a bleeping genius. So we'll talk more about the Super Bowl through the show. We will definitely get to some sound from Dawn and the players after the win over Missouri last night. That's coming up. Also, Elijah yesterday went over to the football facility, had a chance to interview a bunch of the newcomers, the transfer portal guys. We're going to fire up some wide receivers today. That's coming up later on. We're very guest-heavy today as well. So we'll be getting to guests and more guests here on the Halftime Show. We'll talk about that in the next segment as well. Terry Ford hanging out on the Halftime Show. Coming up here, some sound from Dawn and the ladies after their win over Missouri next on the Halftime Show on the Game. We'll get back to the women's win over Missouri in a little bit, and also Justin Stepp taking the wide receiver coaching gig at Illinois and leaving South Carolina. But first, let's focus on tomorrow at CLA. Vandy comes to town to take on the South Carolina men. So we have stalked Chris Lee from VandySports.com through our many, many contacts to bug him to come on and hang with us. Chris, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate your time.
Oh, you bet. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, so if someone just sits, Chris, and looks at the standings, Vandy's year has been a struggle. Only one win in the league, 6-16 overall. There's been some injuries. What has been the thing? Has it just been injuries have totally derailed this, or is there some deeper stuff going on with the basketball team this year?
I mean, look, injuries haven't helped. They don't have Colin Smith. He was their leading rebounder. He's a nice player. But talent's the bigger issue. And I think last year what they did, the run late in the season, was fool's gold. The program really, since Jerry Stackhouse has taken that job, he's never really hit the recruiting trail like you need to do as a Division I head coach at the Power 5 level. And that has really kept this program from ever getting off the ground. You go back and look at last year. They had a little experience. They hit on Liam Robbins through the transfer portal. His uncle was on the staff. They hit on Tyron Lawrence as a recruit. He got older, got better, got healthy. And they hit on Ezra Mannion in the transfer portal, and he did great things for them a year ago, and it all just kind of came together. They had a great year. But the talent has never been there. He has built this on the philosophy of development. And you look at their attrition rates for players, they're alarming, I think, even at the transfer portal era. You know, one of those guys now is playing at South Carolina and thriving. That's Miles Stute. I think the whole thing, you've got to put in the time. You've got to work recruiting like you have to work it. That I think was going to fall apart to this degree, no, but they can't defend. They don't have athletes that everybody else has. And the SEC is as good as it's ever been. And the timing and all that was bad for them, and you're seeing it in the record.
Chris Lee hanging out with us from Vandy Sports, talking Vanderbilt hoops here on the halftime show on the game. To that point of Jerry Stackhouse, I mean, Jerry got a lot of love at the end of last year for, like you said, the thing that just kind of came together. But for your opinion, if Jerry doesn't change some of these things, is there going to end up being a come to Jesus for Jerry Stackhouse, and maybe even if not after this year, after next year at Vanderbilt?
Well, I don't think they'll ever change. They haven't changed since he's been here. He's got a nice contract. He's got the support of his athletic director. I know there's been a lot of speculation about him losing a job, but Vanderbilt is just not like the other schools, guys. It's just not. I think if you start thinking about it from the framework that any fan base would think about it, South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee, you name it, I think you're going to end up with long conclusions. I don't think they're that unhappy with him. I think they are going back on he was coach of the year last year. I think he and his athletic director are tight. Look, I'm not sitting here telling you they're not going to fire him, but if you really want to explain Vanderbilt, you've got to go back about 20 years and look at the time when they pulled the athletic department. They eliminated the athletic department. They still had athletics, but they put it under the umbrella of the school. And really, ever since that time, the school has been taking more control over athletics, to the point of even basically taking over media relations a few years ago. And the school is about its messaging, and it is about the things that it prioritizes. And they made the athletic director position a vice chancellor position. And they are looking to hire not an athletic director when they hire, but they're looking to have a vice chancellor over athletics, which is why they promoted Candace Lee internally. And I know I'm getting off the track here, but there's a point to this. And she's got 3 degrees from Vanderbilt. She thinks like them. She does what they want them to do. So, we could sit here and say, at any other school, this is what needs to happen. This is what would happen. This is how they handle it. Throw all that out the window when it comes to Vanderbilt. And you have seen how athletics has just gotten progressively worse over the last 4 to 5 years is that the academic side has taken more control over athletics.
Chris Lee, VandySports.com, hanging here. We are talking Vanderbilt hoops here on the halftime show in the game. No, but this is interesting because it really goes to the bigger picture. So I like this track where you've ended up because it to me it's more of the story of what's going on with Vanderbilt athletics. Let me take it a little further, fan base wise. You know, a lot of fan bases will be up in arms over all this. They'd be flipping out. The message board genius would be filled in Twitter with a lot of Vanderbilt people going crazy and being upset. What's the temperature on the fan base regarding where Vanderbilt athletics is right now, Chris?
Well, there's not many of the fans left. I mean, they have been outdrawn. How many SEC schools get outdrawn at home for basketball? I mean, that almost never happens. I mean, it's probably happened at Carolina when they've had some really bad seasons and Kentucky fans take over that gym. But I don't know that that's the case. Two of their last 3 home games now, I guess, have been Tennessee and Kentucky. There have been more of the other team's fans in the gym than theirs by a large margin. And some of that is Vanderbilt fans just aren't showing up. I've got a couple of hoops guys that cover that for me in person, and I usually watch most of it on TV because I've got stuff to do with kids and everything. But the one game I went to this year was the Dartmouth game. I don't think they had 2,000 of their people in that building. And, look, I used to not miss a game. And for a game like that, they might have, I don't know, the past, 8,000 or 9,000 minimum. The recent years it's dropped to maybe more like 5 or 6, but there just aren't many of their fans left. You see it in football. I mean, every time they have a home game, the conversation is the stadium takeover when it comes to the league. And so they have been so bad this decade. You look at, they had a season of football where they went over. As bad as it's been available, that's never happened. They had a winless season in basketball in the conference. The only team to ever do that, 5 years ago. They're headed towards a 1, 2, 3 win season in conference this season. Jerry Stackhouse has had a pair of 3-win conference years. I mean, the women's basketball team, which used to be a fixture in the NCAA tournament, hasn't been in about a decade, and based on recent momentum isn't going. They have shrunk their fan base to where it is so small that there aren't many of them left to complain, and the ones that do complain, they don't really care about anyway because, again, kind of everything's run by that administrative arm of the school, and they care about what they care about, and that's not what the fans care about.
And, Chris, the sad part is, Vanderbilt men's basketball used to be an NCAA tournament team many, many years. And, there was a lot – first-round picks in the NBA draft. I mean, Vanderbilt basketball was something for a period of time. And now you talk about the apathy in the fan base. And you say something interesting to me, too. It's like the administrative arm that's running it doesn't really care what the fans think. Or do they care that no one's buying tickets, or do they not care about that either?
I mean, a little bit, but I mean, the reason they've stayed in the SEC is money. That check is a large check. It also gets their name out there more front and center, just by being a part of the SEC than, pick a league, Conference USA, whatever. There's a point with everybody where that matters, but the point with them, I've explained it almost like deal with an addict. Have you ever dealt with an addict that you see things happen and you're like, surely that's the bottom, and then it's not, and then there's another bottom and another bottom, you think, and eventually that either ends really badly or there's a bottom that maybe sort of instigates a change for the better, but it's several bottoms beyond what you would have perceived. They're a lot like that. Point I'm making here, I think money and support matter to some degree, but they've got, from what I've been told, about 30 of the mega wealthy types. And I've talked to people that have donated like $1 million to the school, and they said, I'm not even on the school's radar because they can go to, I'll give you an example, Mark Cuban and Mark Wilf, pro sports owners, both have kids in school there right now. I think they've been approached about donating for this and that, and this and that. I think in some cases have. They've got a bunch of people that are like that. So whatever pain they're feeling from ticket sales, in a place where, again, athletics are just controlled by the school, it's just another thing they do, they can go to those guys and have them write checks that dwarf whatever attendance numbers suffer, for for your average SEC game. And I think that's part of the problem. They got so many people who can write so many checks, they don't feel the pain like other schools might.
Makes sense. Chris Lee hanging out with us, VandySports.com. In my last minute, I'll actually ask you about the basketball. This was a much more fascinating conversation than Vandy basketball, so I thank you.
Yeah.
The last minute, what does Vandy have to do to pull off a huge upset at Columbia on Saturday?
Well, there's not a lot of parts there, but there's still a few parts. Ezra Mannion and Tyron Lawrence are a really good backcourt on the right night. They led that team to several upsets a year ago. Those guys are still there. They got a guy, Ben Allen Lubin, who's a front court guy who went for a double-double in the first half of the Auburn game alone. From there, it drops off big. They got a kid named Jason Rivera-Torres who can shoot a little bit, but he's off and on. He's very spotty. I think where this game separates, Carolina's also got very good guard play too. With Cooper and Johnson. But I think, you look at what Colin Murray Boyles has done, going 16-9 the other night. You look at B.J. Mack, what he's done. You look at some of the other guys they've got. I think they really start to separate. I don't even say Vanderbilt's got the edge in the backcourt, but if you want to just call that a stalemate, where the game separates is once you go 3 to 13 on the rest of the roster. If Vanderbilt gets a good game from its backcourt and has a stalemate there, and Lubin or Torres pop and have good games, maybe it's interesting. Otherwise, it's not.
Chris Lee, VandySports.com. Really, this conversation was. Thank you for giving us the insight on Vandy Sports. It was very compelling. We appreciate it, man. We'll bug you again down the road. Thanks, Chris. All right, that's Chris Lee from VandySports.com. We're going to talk about that on the way back. We're reversing the next segment. Also, we'll get a Firehouse subtext of the hour next on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Captain Dave's here. We go till 3 on the game. Time to get our Firehouse sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100. All right, a nameless texter. We were talking about Justin Stepp, the wide receiver coach, who then moved to tight end coach when James Coley was added to the staff and became the wide receiver coach. And now Justin Stepp is at Illinois, or leaving to go to Illinois. Texter, this implies to me that the move to tight ends coach was a demotion or seen as a demotion, not just a shifting of duties. Thoughts? Yeah, I could see that. Now, I know that from what I've heard of people who have talked to folks with the football program, it was not a demotion. Not in the eyes of Shane Beamer. It was just a shifting of duties that Justin Stepp could bring the wide receiver coaching skills and coach the tight ends up in the art of development as in their receiving skills. And James Coley, excellent wide receiver coach, excellent recruiter. Then you come in, you upgrade your staff, but you take a guy that you do value and you move him to coach tight ends because, they're pass catchers too, and they've been very important in this offense in the last couple of years. So, especially last year with Dow Loggins. So, I think from what I hear and understand, Shane Beamer wasn't demoting Justin Stepp. He was taking a guy who is a wide receiver coach, wanting him to use wide receiver coaching principles to help the tight ends regarding receiving. And I think Justin Stepp, it feels like, and I haven't been told this, it feels like Justin Stepp looked at it as a demotion. Either that or he looked at it like, I don't want to coach tight ends. I want to coach receivers. So if there's a receiver coach job somewhere available, I want it. It's one of the two, right? Or maybe both. But I don't think Shane was demoting. From what I've heard, Shane was not demoting Justin Stepp. He was just reassigning his teaching abilities to another room where guys do catch passes. So there's my thoughts on that. And Justin Stepp just didn't want to do it. And he found a wide receiver coach gig, and he took off for it. And so we appreciate the text on the Firehouse sub text line, 803-404-6100. Top of the hour, I want to go back to what Chris Lee said about the Vanderbilt athletic program. I want to get back to that, and we'll do it in the 1 o'clock hour when we talk football. Right now, let's get back to the hoops. Here's Dawn Staley after the win last night over Missouri. First of all, here's Dawn, cut 28, Dave, talking about winning without Camila Cardozo last night.
No, it's just how it happened. I thought our post had a, really good week of practice, and then Lay has just really been locked in on both sides of the basketball. So she's getting pretty serious about this game and the prep for it, and really understanding what it takes to play at a high level on a consistent basis. And it's all her.
All right, and if you looked at last night, the post players did step up. They all had a role. They all had their minutes, and they stepped up in the victory. Chloe Kitts went for 12. Also, Fagans and Watkins produced as well in the win. And if you look at the totality of the post position last night, and I'll try this without my phone, so I'm really going to be in trouble trying to add it. As you get older, you get really bad at math. Chloe Kitts goes for 12. Fagans goes for 11. So you got 23 with Fagan and Kitts. Then you had the 9 from Watkins. You got 32 points, 32 points, 17 rebounds. And then you throw in Walker's 4 points and a rebound. It's a pretty productive night from the folks down low in the paint, filling in for Camila Cardozo. So nice night all the way around. And speaking of Fulwale, who was good last night, here is Dawn. It's cut 30, Dave, talking about Malaysia Fulwale's night.
She's got a little bit of everything. She is probably the X factor in that she, we know she can score a lot of points. She's super unselfish. Like she involves other people. Our defense has really been the separation. Like she's elevated in a space of it's really unbelievable the amount of pressure without fouling. I thought at the end she started gambling a little bit, but when you steal the ball 6 times, you get the urge to want to steal all of them. But she's very, very aware of her of her, I call it superpower on both sides of the basketball, and it's kind of cool to see it develop in such a short period because she's just a freshman and she doesn't carry herself like that. She's now not practicing like she's a freshman. She looks like she belongs. She walks like she belongs. She plays like she belongs.
Yeah, Fulwiley, obviously a special talent. We'll talk more about that through the show. Football coming up next. And I want to start off with some of the things Chris Lee said about Vanderbilt athletics I find very interesting. And we'll get into that next on the halftime show. Terry Ford hanging here. Captain Dave's also chilling for another half hour with us on the game. Halftime show with Terry Ford. Captain Dave's here punching up the buttons for us up until 1:30. Then Dave's going to roll home, take a nap. Cat's woken up at 4 this morning?
Yeah, 4:15.
4:15. Cat woke you up. We know what you do now. When you go home and the cat's asleep, you wake him up.
Oh, I do, but he just looks at me funny. She just looks at me funny and goes,
She does what?
looks at me funny.
And does what? What's the noise?
It's a human again.
Cats just walk around with the middle paw up all day long.
They do.
They just don't care, man. Cats are hilarious. I mean, I'm fine with cats. I'm more of a dog person. I mean, I've had dogs in my life more than cats. I'm much more of a dog person, but cats are they don't care.
They don't.
They go, "What do you want me to do?" Okay, I'll do the opposite.
Exactly.
That's what I'm going to do.
The only bad thing about dogs is, and there's big dogs where I live, huge dogs, and they're so loving they come running, toward you, and they'll practically knock you down, which
Jerry,
is bad for me.
That's not good for you. You can't have big dogs knocking you down.
I won't be able to get up for 3 more days.
Say, it might take you all weekend to get up. So Dave's going to go home and go to sleep because God knows he needs it. All right. Football, and more football here in the 1 o'clock hour. Brought to you by Atlantic Windows and Doors. I thought it was interesting what Chris Lee brought up from VandySports.com. We started off by talking about Vandy basketball, but the conversation totally went down another road, which to me was much more interesting than talking about a bad basketball team. It's more of the reason it's a bad basketball team, like the reason there's a bad football team. And at Vanderbilt, Chris brought it up when they pretty much dissolved the athletic department and put all the sports under the administrative umbrella. It hasn't been the same. Look, Vandy has never been consistently good at football. They had a nice little run with James Franklin. Every now and then they fall into a bowl game with somebody else, but they have been, even for Vandy, they've been god-awful. And the basketball, this is where it really says something. The men's basketball program was always good. Made the NCAA tournament a good amount of times. I think there's a Sweet 16 run in there, if my memory serves me. And now, last year it kind of, got it going at the end, got some upsets. Jerry Stackhouse was SEC Coach of the Year. They, quote-unquote, shocked the world. But like Chris said, it was fool's gold. A good basketball program is now a below-average basketball program. And all this goes back to Vanderbilt, taking the athletic department away from people who should run an athletic department and put it under the umbrella of the administration with people who shouldn't be running an athletic department, who don't care. And that's what it feels like to me. It's not so much the losing, because you lose. That happens. And some programs have a tough time. Again, there's no salary caps in college athletics. There's no, even playing field in any way, shape, or form. But it almost, from what Chris says, they're not trying. They're taking the big check from the SEC and going, hey, thanks a lot, appreciate it. And they're not really all in and investing in making the athletics better. Yeah, baseball's really good, but besides that, basketball has gotten worse. Chris talked about the women's team. Used to be good. Now, Football, you're a doormat. You're a punching bag. You're everybody's homecoming. Even the basketball program for the men. Good program. Make the NCAA tournament. Decent amount of time. Now look at them. And it feels like there's not an effort to put the money into being good, or at least trying to be good. And maybe, look, if you try to be good and you stink, at least you're trying, right? But how much is Vanderbilt trying? And Chris also brought up, when you've got very, very, very rich human beings whose kids go to the school, and they just write big checks, what's your motivation to, be good? Try to be good. What do you care? I mean, it's really sad. What do you care about your fan base? You're like, you don't like it? Don't show up. Hey, Mark, hey, Mr. Cuban, can you write us another big check? It's a sad state of affairs. And if I'm Greg Sankey, and I'm not, it'd be kind of cool to be Greg Sankey for a day. Well, if I was Greg Sankey, I, in a very nice way, would have a conversation with the folks at Vanderbilt saying, look, we're not saying you got to win. We're saying you got to try, or try harder than you're trying. Because there are going to be programs that are always going to be doormatish in different conferences. But I'll go to the Big Ten, Rutgers. I mean, the Big Ten basement for a long time had been, covered in Rutgers gear. But you get Greg Schiano back. Greg Schiano wins. He won at Rutgers. He's the only guy to win at Rutgers really consistently. Schiano's back. Rutgers is now, they're trying to be competitive, and they're better. That's called trying. Just doesn't feel like that's what Vanderbilt's doing, man. And if you're the SEC, you're going to say, look, we're not saying we want you to turn it around and all of a sudden become great, but we want you to at least to put more effort in than you're putting now. I mean, talking about Stackhouse, Jerry Stackhouse had a nice season last year. Surprising season. He's also had some bad seasons at Vandy. He's going to have a terrible one this year. But, you talk to Chris Lee there from Vandy Sports, and Chris is like, he's tight with the administrative AD. He might be there for another few years before they finally have to pull the plug. And you hear Chris talk, the administrative AD, he's got 3 degrees from Vanderbilt. She thinks like Vanderbilt. She does what Vanderbilt wants. I mean, if you're a fan of the Commodores, you just go cheer for the baseball team. That's all you really got in the big sports. It's a bad situation. It's almost like having a bad owner in professional sports. You're just doomed before you start most of the time. It's a very sad state of affairs after talking to Chris Lee, VandySports.com. But it was good stuff from Chris because, the plan was to talk about Vanderbilt basketball. But, once Chris started talking, to me, the obvious conversation was, well, forget Vanderbilt basketball. Let's talk about what's wrong with Vanderbilt athletics. So good stuff from Chris Lee from Vandy.com. All right, also football. Justin Stepp, wide receiver coach here at South Carolina, became the tight ends coach when James Coley came aboard. Justin Stepp is now an ex-coach at South Carolina. Stepp is going to take the wide receiver coaching gig at Illinois under Brett Bielema. The OC at Illinois also worked with Justin Stepp at Arkansas. So Justin Stepp wanting to be a wide receiver coach again. Did not want to be a tight end coach. And he's now a wide receiver coach again at Illinois. Hey, you wish him well. So Shane Beamer will figure out what he's going to do to fill the tight end coach's role. Obviously, he'll look around like he did for special teams coach, see if he can find somebody that's a real high-level hire. Or, Shane coached tight ends. Maybe he'll do it himself for a year. But we'll see where that goes. But Justin Stepp moving on to be the wide receiver coach at Illinois. And as we talked about it multiple times on the show, either Justin Stepp just wasn't happy with not being a wide receiver coach and wanted to get back to being a wide receiver coach, or maybe he looked at losing the wide receiver coaching gig and getting moved to the tight end room as a demotion. I don't know. But if Justin Stepp was happy, he wouldn't be leaving. And from what I've heard, Shane Beamer did not look at it as a demotion. He looked at it as, Justin, I want you to take your teaching skills and how you coach wide receivers, coach your tight ends to be better receivers. But, if you're not down with it, you're not down with it. And that's not a criticism of anybody. But Justin Stepp will move on and become the wide receiver coach at Illinois. Super Bowl, again, we've talked a bit about the Super Bowl. We're going to get back to it, obviously. Tons of stuff there. When I look at this game, I just feel like there's something with Kansas City. I've said it all week. I think I said like Monday or Tuesday, Kansas City's going to win. I'm rooting for San Francisco, but I think the Chiefs will win. They've got that championship DNA now. They just do. They just find ways to win. They find ways to make plays. Some anonymous, gunner on special teams makes a big play and Kansas City wins. The long snapper does something fabulous and Kansas City wins. It's just Kansas City. They all believe that someone's going to step up and make the play, and it starts with 15, right? And one of the things that we talked about it a little bit the week of the AFC Championship game because there's a lot of conversation. Baltimore leading the league in sacks. Kansas City doesn't give up a ton of sacks. Part of it is they have a good offensive line, especially the two guards and the center. But the other thing is Mahomes gets the ball out quick. And Mahomes avoids sacks. The one thing he has done as his career has moved on, he's matured. He understands that every play can't be a home run play. Sometimes you just take the L on a play and move on to the next play. Mahomes has gotten great at not being sacked. And that's a skill. That is a quarterback management skill. And Mahomes is arguably the best at it, avoiding sacks and getting rid of the ball quick. And yet Kansas City doesn't have even though you saw 3 plays of over 30 yards in their last 2 playoff games, Kansas City only had 17 plays of 20-plus yards during the year. Teams have taken away the bomb and the big plays down the field in the Kansas City offense. They look at Patrick Mahomes and go, dude, dink and dunk us. We're not going to let you beat us down the field anymore. We'll put 15 guys 30 yards down the field. You ain't beating us. It's not going to work anymore. So Mahomes has had to learn, get the ball out quick, find the open guy, and hopefully he can do some yak damage. I mean, and really Mahomes' numbers, 20-plus yards, nothing special this year at all. Because teams are taking it away. And 2, the Kansas City wide receivers during the season had this really bad problem. When you throw it to them, they drop it. They haven't done it in the postseason. That's another thing about championship DNA. Kansas City Chief receivers were abysmal through the whole year. They're terrible. They were terrible. You threw it to them, they drop it. They've only got 3 drops in the postseason. That's it. They had the most drops in the regular season. I think it was 37. And it's been years since a team had dropped that many passes. As a matter of fact, I think that's the most in a season since the metric was keeping by the analytics crew. But not in the postseason. You throw it to them now, they catch it. They make big plays. And defensively, this is the best defense in the Patrick Mahomes era. It's just they're really good on D. But they're going to have to be good tacklers on Sunday because no team runs without the catch like the 49ers, whether it's Debo, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle. Kittle and Debo are among the league leaders in yak yards. You throw it to them, they're breaking tackles and making plays. Kansas City has to tackle well on Sunday, or they could watch a lot of 49er receivers and backs running on down the field. So we'll get more into the Super Bowl as we go through. There is a hiring in college football, a head coaching hiring, because it never stops now. We'll get to that next. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford hanging out. Dave's here, too. We go till 3 here on The Game. Football, and more football here on the halftime show. Terry Ford hanging out with you. Dave is here for a few more minutes before he rolls off. Take a nap in his car. We go till 3, and then Elijah and Jay will take over with the postgame show here on the game. Also coming up here in just a little bit, we're going to fire up. Elijah did a great job over at the football complex yesterday talking to the transfers that have come in. We're going to hear from the receivers here. We're going to go to, coming up in a little bit, we'll fire up Jaron Brown, the transfer in from Coastal Carolina. So we're going to get that here in just a little bit. But right now, though, a head coaching hire in the world of college football. There was an opening at Boston College. Their head coach rolled off to the NFL, become the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. Jeff Hafley, who was doing a solid job at BC. A lot of people looked at him in the beginning of his tenure like, wow, this guy's an up-and-comer. He could have a real Power 5 head coaching gig in like the Big Ten or the SEC or somewhere like that in no time. But it just didn't work for Hafley. BC's a tough place to win consistently. It just is. Yeah, we've seen like Tom O'Brien do it and Jack Bicknell back in the day in the Flutie era. But as the world has evolved the way it has in college football, Boston College has been kind of left behind. It's a very tough place to win. They don't have great NIL at this point. And it's a hard gig. There's a few names out there for it. Bill O'Brien's name came up, and O'Brien had just taken the offensive coordinator gig at Ohio State. Also, Paul Chryst, former head coach at Wisconsin's name came up, among others. And to the shock of no one, Boston College is working toward a deal to hire Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien did a good job at Penn State. Remember, Bill O'Brien was the poor schlub that took over at Penn State after the Jerry Sandusky mess. And O'Brien, again, did a solid job, then became an NFL head coach with the Texans. Bill O'Brien as a head coach was good, just Bill O'Brien, the GM, was awful. Bill O'Brien can coach. He's a solid to good head coach. Bill O'Brien will have Boston College competitive. I mean, Boston College is never going to be, I don't think, anytime soon playing the college football playoff, but Bill O'Brien, I think, can make BC competitive, get them to some mid-level bowl games, kind of rehab himself as a head coach, remind people, hey, I'm a good head coach. And Bill O'Brien could use the Boston College job to get himself, a better gig. So seems like Bill O'Brien will be the new head coach at Boston College. Very, very tough place to win is Boston College. All right, slipping over here to the one other college note that I want to get to real quick. Michigan needs a defensive coordinator. Jesse Minter took off to the NFL to work with Jim Harbaugh. And now Michigan is going to hire Wink Martindale, not the game show host. Wink Martindale, former defensive coordinator of the New York Giants, also the Baltimore Ravens. We'll see, man. Wink Martindale's got a good defensive mind. I think he's just an NFL guy. He got into a big thing with Brian Dable, the head coach of the Giants, and they started throwing stuff around Dable's office, and Dable was like, kick rocks. He's like, no, dude, I quit. Martindale, his last year in Baltimore, his mouth kind of got him in some trouble with some press conferences. Nothing like scandalous, but just stuff that he shouldn't be saying. And a little bulletin board material for the other teams. Wink is just he's just his own dude, and he kind of goes by his own way. And he's had some problems with his with head coaches. And we'll see how it goes at the University of Michigan. First of all, dealing with college kids, and how he deals with his head coach on the collegiate level. It's an interesting hire. Again, Wink knows defense. He's been a solid to good defensive coordinator. I just don't know about Wink Martindale in college. I just don't. We'll see. We shall see what happens with Wink Martindale on the collegiate level. But also, I find it interesting that Wink couldn't get a NFL gig, or maybe he was just holding out to be a defensive coordinator. And he couldn't get that offer in the NFL, so he went to do it in college. I don't know how much other head coaches saw what happened with Wink Martindale and Brian Dable. But if you're a head coach, do you want to hire a defensive coordinator who is fighting with the head coach? You bring a guy like that in, it's like, is that guy going to become a problem for me? Is he going to get in fights with me? I don't want to deal with this. So we'll see what happens with Wink Martindale at Michigan. All right, let's flip the NFL real quick. NFL note. Jets owner Woody Johnson should not talk, but is talking. He slammed backup quarterback Zach Wilson and then turned up the heat on his head coach Robert Saleh and his GM Joe Douglas in an interview Thursday night at the NFL Honors Awards show in Vegas. We'll tell you who won those awards here in a little bit if you haven't heard. Johnson, speaking publicly for the first time since the end of the season, said he is angry because about the team's disappointing 7-10 finish. All but issued a playoff mandate for Saleh and Douglas, something Johnson has never done before as an owner with a coach or a GM. Quote, the discussions I've had the last couple of months, we've seen me about as mad as I can be about what's going on with the offense in particular. We have all this talent. We've deployed talent properly, so I think they all got the message. This is it. This is the time to go. We've got to produce this year. Hey, Woody, you did see your starting quarterback got hurt in the first game, right? Just saying. I'm not taking up for anybody. The Jets need to make the playoffs this year. They absolutely need to make the playoffs. I agree with that. You get Aaron Rodgers back healthy, there's no reason not to. And if you're slamming your backup quarterback who was drafted 3rd overall, you can do that private, man. You have to do that in public. You get it. He wasn't very good. A terrible pick. I didn't like the pick from the beginning. You took some guy because, he tore up some below-average defenses during COVID in college and then went to the combine and in his underwear threw the ball 70 yards downfield and you got all tingly. Not very good. That wasn't the guy to take. So, yeah, you got your coach and your GM on the hot seat. That's fine. But, beating up the number 3 pick in the draft for stinking, probably not a good way to go. All right, so Woody Johnson talking, again, saying Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas got to make the playoffs. I agree. It's time if everybody's healthy. All right, there's some notes. We'll get you those NFL Honors Awards if you missed them in a little bit. But up next, we're going to grab some wide receiver interviews. Our buddy Elijah Campbell's going to come in here and hook us up with a couple of the wide receiver transfers he talked to yesterday. It's coming up on the halftime show right here on the game. Alrighty, halftime show here on the game. I knock out my earbuds at least once a show. At least once a show. It's a gift. It is a gift. And I almost did it again when I was plugging them back in. Elijah's here now. Good to see you, bud.
Good to be back.
Yeah, you're back again for one more day of fun. Anyway.
Just one?
Well, we're hoping Jen will be back on Monday. So we can all get back to normal. All get back to normal. We're hoping. So Jen's feeling better. Hope we get here on Monday. All right, so yesterday when you went and talked to all the transfer portal guys, I want to focus on the receivers today. Start with Jared Brown. I think Brown, he was a yak freak at Coastal Carolina. I mean, a yards after catch demon. And what I like about him, when you look at his numbers, when you throw it to him, you know what he did? Caught it.
Consistently.
I'm a huge fan of receivers who catch it when you throw it to them. You'll learn my whole philosophy of wide receivers is this. I don't care how fast your 40 is. I don't care about your vertical. I don't care about your shuttle run. I don't care how many times you can bench press a tractor. Here's what I care about. You get open, and when they throw it to you, you catch it. Because if you can't do those two things, nothing else matters. Brown, when you throw it to him, he catches it. And when he catches it, he typically makes some dudes miss, and he picks up yards. So let's get your interview with Jared Brown, transfer from Coastal Carolina to South Carolina. Here's Elijah talking to Jared yesterday over at the complex.
It is a very loving culture. I like what they have going on. You know, the team is like a brotherhood right now, and that's just what I wanted to come into when I hit the transfer portal.
What have kind of your early conversations with Howell Loggins been like, just looking at this offense?
Yeah, I mean, he was just, you know, showing different ways he can get everyone the ball. You know, he's spaced the ball out. He throws it. He stretches the field. He can do different things with different people, put him in different spots. So I like the opportunity that I came into. So that's what I chose.
How do you feel like your background kind of bodes well for this offense and where you feel like you could fit as a receiver?
Yeah, you know, last year when I was at Coastal, we did move around a lot. We moved myself in the slot and outside, you know, different places. So Coach Loggins said that he could do some of the same things. So, you know, that's something I want to come into.
Just kind of in your early impressions of Coach Coley.
Say again?
Just kind of your early impressions of Coach Coley.
Oh, Coach Coley, he's a cool coach. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He's been at the big time schools. He knows what he's talking about. So.
How did the offense last year? Because the offense last year, we had some explosive parts of the season. What was any of that appealing to you in terms of finding a new offense to find yourself in? Do you see yourself fitting in that pretty well?
Yes, the way that they used Xavier Gett last year, I really like that. They were moving him around the slot, outside to the boundary, everything. So I feel like if I want to make it to the next level, I have to show that I can be versatile. So I feel like if I come here, then he'll make that happen.
And what about the things that you did at Coastal? What do you think that you did there translates the best off the bat?
I would say route running. We have a lot of routes in this offense. We have a lot of routes in the route tree. So, yeah. And then on top of that, I feel like that, you know, we didn't run a lot of the routes that they have here. So if I can learn those routes and I can show that I can run any route in the route tree, then that would be a good thing.
Yeah. What kind of goes into that too? Learning or adding to your route tree for someone maybe who's never played the position of wide receiver. What kind of goes into seeing it and then kind of adding something to your game that you might not be as familiar with?
Yeah. It's just more of, you know, in the film room. So, you know, I watch film every day on different receivers. If it's in college or if it's in the NFL, I break down what they do and what they do well, and I try to translate that to my game.
Awesome. Which NFL receivers do you watch right now where that it kind of play the way you would like to see yourself?
Yeah, I like Tyreek Hill, obviously. You know, he's a speed guy, and I feel like I'm a speed guy too. Jalen Waddle, I watch him a lot, and I forget his first name, but it's St. Brown on the Lions.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, yeah. Good slot, good in the slot too.
Good one.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I cannot bet against the Chiefs, so
Okay,
I'm gonna go. Yeah,
I'm the same way.
yeah, I can't do it.
Deployed the same, same scenario.
With the receiver room looking so different, and there's so many new faces coming from everywhere. How do you guys get to know each other when you all maybe have crossed paths once or twice in your life before? But aside that, I mean, just a few weeks ago, you all were sitting down in a room for the very first time.
Right. I mean, we're all coming. I mean, we all here for the same reason. You know, and we all want to win games and have a productive season this year. So if everyone buys into each other and helps each other out, then I don't see why that can happen. Why that can't happen.
Why do you think the Sun Belt to the SEC was the right move for you?
Just to be on a bigger platform, just to show what I could do on the bigger stage. You know, they have seen it in the Sun Belt, but I have to be consistent enough to do it here too.
Does it help that your first game is actually against a former Sun Belt opponent in ODU?
A little bit, but you know, I mean, they're gonna know who I am because they've seen me all 3 years I've been playing in the Sun Belt. So, yeah.
What have you seen from Lenora Sellers so far and the rest of the quarterback room?
Yeah, I like them. You know, they're very developed right now, I would say. Lenore's is a young guy, but you know he plays like a senior. All of the quarterbacks do, so I don't see why we don't have a great season this year.
Appreciate it.
I noticed you're wearing Crocs right now too. How would you grade that on comfort and style?
On comfort?
I'm a former Croc wearer myself. I haven't found any recently, but they are. It is A+ comfort.
Yeah.
So it's still in style, though.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
For the record, I have not worn Crocs since high school. I'm not anti-Croc. I just have not worn them in a long time. And Jared Brown wore some pretty comfortable shoes yesterday. The man dressed for comfort and, of course, is going to be able to give this offense a lot of comfort going into next year because, look, South Carolina loses a lot of production from their receiving core on Xavier Legette alone. And you heard Jared when I asked him about what about this offense last year was really appealing to him, where he could see himself fitting in. And he mentioned that he liked where they used Legette in the offense, which was everywhere on the field, on the boundary and the slot. Being able to use him in different ways, whether it be deep passes down the field or being creative in terms of finding different ways to get the ball in his hands so he can utilize his athletic ability. And Terry, I think that's a good sign for a guy who at Coastal Carolina last year was averaging almost 10 yards after the catch with each reception. I mean, he seems like, in terms of being number one receiver ready, even though it's not a vertical passing game for him because his average depth of target is less than 6 yards.
Right.
It's very low, but he seems like the one where, out of all the guys they bring in, I am most intrigued to see how he's able to complete the offense.
It's going to be interesting to see how they use him because to me, he talks about Xavier Legette. I think more of how they used Amarion Brown because Amarion Brown was typically used almost exclusively in the slot, and you know, Jared Brown's not gigantic. He's not like 6'2", 6'3", 210 or 250.
He's not physically imposing.
Xavier Legette's a little bit bigger than Jared.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're going to use him, like a chess piece, the way that Dow lined up Legette, slot, out wide, left, right, motion, whatever, they did give Legette the ball in jet sweeps and stuff like that. So if you're going to use Jared in that sort of fashion, okay, that makes sense if you want to move him around the formation, but he is not the physical specimen that Xavier Legette was. But Brown is bigger than Amarion Brown. Amarion Brown, I think I weighed more than Amarion Brown.
And he's got about 3 inches on him in terms of height, too.
Yeah.
Amarion was basically, for a lot of games last year, it felt like, the running back replacement, but instead of handing the ball off to him, you're throwing quick screens because you just had so much offensive line.
And Brown was such a small guy. He was really quick, but he was very small. So you got your hands on him, he was going down. Jared Brown doesn't go down like that.
Nope.
He is much more of a creating yards after catch. And you're right, his depth of target, he was basically getting bubble screens, short crossers. If they were just getting the ball barely across the line of scrimmage, but they were getting to him in space. And then he created yards, because his average yards per catch compared to his average depth per target
doesn't add up.
It's crazy. Because you go, this guy averaged how many yards a catch? And the depth of target was 5 or 6 yards? Really? Well, what's this? It's easy. He caught it, made people miss, and ran for yards. So he is going to be, this might be, it's either my favorite or my second or third favorite guy coming through the portal for them. I think Jared Brown can do some stuff for South Carolina. He could be very productive. So we'll see. All right. We'll also, before we get out of here, you also talked with the wide receiver whose name none of us can say, and you found out how to say his name.
That's right. Sometimes when you get into, with Jared, I was there with a couple other reporters, some of our friends over there at the facility. But with Gage Larvadan, I get to sit on one-on-one and got to clarify how his last name is said so we don't botch it on
Oh,
air.
it's Larva Dan.
Larva Dan.
So
Yeah.
it's like larva
Yes.
with the name Dan.
That's right.
Look at that. Look at us.
Easy enough.
Look at us. All right.
I have a good source on that.
We'll hear from Gage Larva Dan here in just a little bit. We're also, we are also going to track down, I believe, Mike Yuva. And we're going to yip with Mike Yuva here in just a little bit. If not today, we'll get him next week. So that's coming up on the halftime show. Terry Ford hanging out. Elijah's here. We go to 3 on the game. Time to hit the old Firehouse sub text line, 803-446-100. We were talking about the Super Bowl earlier. We were asking, it doesn't feel as juicy as I thought this week would be with the number 1 seed in San Francisco, defending Super Bowl champion in Kansas City. Maybe it's just because I was like, are we just in a college town that isn't as crazy about the NFL? They care more about the SEC, which is nothing wrong with that. Well, maybe that's why we're not getting the Super Bowl buzz, maybe. I don't know. We know 1 trillion people will watch it no matter what. It could be, honestly, if you think about it, Elijah, we could conceivably see, I don't know, the Jacksonville Jaguars play the Arizona Cardinals.
Trying to think of the most random Super Bowl match.
And it would be 1 billion people watching.
Oh, yeah.
No one cares. So, and we're also discussing, are you tired of Kansas City? Because it always goes this way, right? A team comes up in the beginning, Patrick Mahomes, his rookie year, first year as a starter, I should say. They got Tyreek Hill, and they got Travis Kelce, and they're throwing the ball everywhere, and they're scoring a lot of points, and Mahomes is a gunslinger, and, it was fun, right? Now we're how many years into this with Kansas City? This will be their 4th trip to the Super Bowl. They've been to the AFC Championship game every year of Mahomes' career. Are people now sick of Kansas City? The whole thing with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and are people getting tired of Andy Reid's mustache? Is that a thing? Because it's a natural progression, right? We start by loving teams when they become good, and then by the end, we're tired of them. Golden State. Everybody loved Golden State the first couple years. Oh, Steph and his cute little daughter, and Clay, and Draymond's so fiery, and by the end of it, it's like, I hate them all. People were like, I hate them all.
Especially when they added Kevin Durant.
Oh, they added Kevin Durant. They're like, that's not fair. Well, there was no rule in adding Kevin Durant. To me, it was a great move by a very smart, shrewd team that made them unbeatable.
And that they were.
Yes. Well, let's be honest. You and I both know this. It's no offense to Toronto Raptors. If Golden State's healthy, they beat the Raptors in 3 games. Because the Raptors get whooped so bad in 3, they just forfeit the 4th one. They had no chance against a healthy Golden State. We all know that. The Raptors deep down inside know that.
10 minutes Durant played in that series, they were like a plus 11.
They diced them. They diced them, then the Achilles blew. And then Clay's ACL blew. But anyway, I guess the point is, I'm not saying you and I'm just saying fans in general get tired of you when you start winning for a long period. So we have a text from LaDonna. I'm rooting for San Francisco, Debo, McCaffrey, tired of Kansas City. Yuck. So again, I've said I'm picking Kansas City. Again, you don't pick against Jigsaw, Freddy Krueger, Mike Myers,
Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th.
They eventually,
just when you thought it was over,
they're never dead. The Chiefs this year looked dead near the end. They got whooped by Vegas. Their wide receivers couldn't catch. Their offense was clunky. And they lost 6 games in the regular season. You figure, okay, they'll go in the playoffs. They might win a game, but they're not making the AFC Championship game.
Well, it felt like this is the year the Bills or Ravens get them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guess what? Who's in the Super Bowl?
The Chiefs.
Exactly.
And not the Ravens or the Bills.
And the Chiefs found a way in both of those games to win those games.
On the road.
Both the Bills and the Ravens walked off that field going, why didn't we win? Well, here's why. The team that beat you in the red helmets with the KC on it are made of championship caliber metal. And they just find ways to beat you. And I'm rooting for the 49ers, and I hope the 49ers win. I just think Kansas City finds a way. How, Ter? I don't know. They're top 10 in efficiency in offense, defense, and special teams. Special teams could make a play. I don't know. Maybe you get a play like Snead made on Zay Flowers and knock the ball out of a guy's hand before he crosses the goal line. I don't know. But they're going to find a way to win, I feel like. I hope I'm wrong. But we were talking about this earlier. Kansas City has to tackle. We talk about Jared Brown's yak yards, George Kittle and Debo Samuel's yak yards.
McCaffrey.
If you don't tackle the 49er playmakers, you're in for a long day. And that's the thing with the 49ers. They have more talent than the Chiefs on paper, just like the Ravens and Bills did. And if it's by talent, if talent shows up on Sunday 49ers definitely can win because this group on offense is better than the group that Kansas City faced 4 years ago. So if the 49ers can get loose and the KC defense misses some tackles, they could be in for a long day.
And the turnover battle. Talked about the Chiefs being top 10 in offense, defense, and special teams efficiency. You know what they were dead last in?
I know.
After Christmas?
Turnover.
Turnover.
Well, you know what else they're terrible at? And this is the key to the game, too, because San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey gets the ball so much. The Chiefs give up 5 yards a carry.
They can't get gashed.
And, there was a team in the AFC Championship game who runs the ball really well that decided not to run the ball. Who would that team be? San Francisco's smarter than that. They will run the football until Kansas City stops it. And then they'll play action with Purdy, and they'll try to get the ball to their playmakers. And if Kansas City doesn't tackle those playmakers, San Francisco can really, really spin the scoreboard. So
if they can keep Purdy upright. That is the one thing about the Chiefs defense that's better than any year that they've had in this run is that defensive line has finally got it together.
Well, that defense in general is the best defense of the Mahomes era. Their secondary is good. Their defensive front is better than it's been. It's a really good defense, and that's the difference. Kansas City, remember, the defense was just good enough. And the offense said, yeah, we'll score 35. Don't worry about it.
Just a turnover and 2 stops.
Yeah, that's all we need from you. And that's what they do. And they get a big play here and there. But this defense this year, really, honestly, the Chiefs got where they are because of their defense this year more than their offense. All right, we'll come back in here. What's trending at 2, and also our buddy Dimitri to talk some Carolina Panthers coming up on the halftime show. So be ready for that. Also, I want to ask Elijah, because Elijah knows a bit more about Vanderbilt athletics than I do. He was a volleyball player. Anyway,
star volleyball player.
Got some interesting thoughts from Chris Lee about Vanderbilt athletics I want to throw at you. Chris was phenomenal. We talked 12 seconds of basketball, by the way. It was really good.
He's been there a long time.
Yeah, so we're going to do what's trending at 2. Coming up, also greatest day in the history of the world. We're going to talk about all other topics as well here on the game.
Outlet to Fulwiley. Fulwiley drives, stops, pops, and drops it home for two. Malaysia Fulwiley with back-to-back buckets, and the Gamecocks lead 12-8.
Malaysia Fulwiley with a hoop. Fulwiley scores 19. The Carolina women easy over Missouri last night at CLA. You heard it right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. What's trending at 2 brought to you by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Let's start with the women in that big, easy W against a struggling Missouri squad. Let's go, Elijah, to Dawn Staley. Want to grab cut number 33, Dawn talking about the forwards, because you had Kitts and Watkins and Fegan step in and were very productive, kind of kicking it for Cardoza, who was out. Here's Dawn talking about her forwards last night.
I mean, it's great. It's great. I mean, they had some, they worked hard. They worked hard these past 2 days. They've been wanting an opportunity to play more minutes than they usually play. They've been wanting that. It's just unfortunate that, you got Camilla, who's, she's going to play 26 to 30 minutes. And there's not a whole lot of minutes left over for everybody else. So somebody has to lose out. It's been Sakima, but I thought Sakima played great. Great. I do feel comfortable going into the game against UConn with those 4 impacting the game, being able to play. And I won't hesitate in putting any of them in. So, I mean, they earned it. They earned my trust when it comes to that. So hopefully we can have another 2 days of preparation for UConn and get them out there.
All right, so the forward stepped up last night and helped out in the win. Also, here's Dawn discussing. Let's go to the defense here, Elijah. That would be, what cut is that? Cut 31, about defensive dominance in this basketball game against Missouri.
I mean, they were just locked in. I think it was a clear picture of how we wanted to play for our preparation. And once we worked at the last 2 days, because I thought Missouri exposed us the first time we played. They post us up a lot, and we wanted to make sure that didn't happen very often. Because if they're going to get 9 or 10 threes, if they can get, 10 post-up baskets, they can make it a game. So we had to kind of eliminate that part of it, because we know they're going to get 9 or 10 threes on anybody. It's just hard to completely shut them out when it comes to that, because they move well without the ball. They see it and they make you pay, if you overhelp.
All right, this just came in. And first of all, South Carolina defensively, I know Dawn earlier in the year, everybody was gaga over the offense scoring 1 billion points, and Dawn was like, yeah, we still have to guard people. The defense is getting where she wants it. It's coming. And it's still good. It's just Dawn Staley is used to a certain level of defense, and she wants to get to that level. She doesn't care what you think of the level. She's like, there's a Dawn Staley level I want on the defensive end of the court, and it feels like they're starting to trend toward that direction. All right, this is bouncing around the Twitter world, and it might be official very soon. First of all, Pete Thamel from ESPN. Ohio State is expected to target UCLA head coach Chip Kelly as the school's next offensive coordinator. A deal could come together as soon as today. Matt Zenitz then jumps in from On3. I believe Matt's at On3 now, isn't he? Matt's been covering college football forever. Is he at On3?
I think he's at 24/7.
24/7? He's at one of them, right? Yeah, 24/7. Matt Zenitz from 24/7, his tweet, UCLA head coach Chip Kelly has informed his team that he's leaving for another job. So, you're the head coach at UCLA. How much does Chip Kelly make?
Apparently not enough to deal with that BS.
Yeah, and that was what we're going to get to. That's what we're going to get to.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly's salary.
And while you're looking that up, too, I just see this from Bruce Feldman, that there is a Ryan Day-Chip Kelly connection. Ryan Day actually played for Chip Kelly at the University of New Hampshire.
Look at that. Chip Kelly, when he set his new contract, is set to receive $5.8 million in 2024. That changed with the new extension, rising to $6.1 million. Chip Kelly's set to, and again, Chip Kelly's not like he's broke. He's got dough. He's made dough. He's an NFL head coach, got compensated very well at Oregon. It's not like, Chip has no money. But still, Chip Kelly was set to receive $6.1 million in 2024 as the head coach at UCLA. I'm going to go on a limb here. I don't think he's making that much at Ohio State as the offensive coordinator. Because let's do this. All right, so I do believe Riley left TCU to go to Clemson, Garrett Riley, and he's making over $2 million, right?
Correct.
I believe. All right, so we're going to have a little fun here as we do this on the air live because it's always gripping. Highest paid offensive coordinator in college football. Who do you think that is?
I am looking at a list from last year.
Do you have it now?
So, yeah, after last year, according to Sportsnot.com, it was Todd Monken at Georgia with a $2.005 million base salary. And then after he took the Ravens job, Ohio State Buckeyes defensive coordinator Jim Knowles became the highest paid assistant coach with $1.96.
So let's say $2 million.
Yeah.
And let's say Chip will go to Ohio State for $2.5 million to make him the highest paid coordinator in the country. Maybe knock it up to $7.5 million. Basically, he's going to take a pay cut of at least 50% to leave UCLA as the head coach to go to Ohio State to be the offensive coordinator. Okay, does that tell us just how much of a dumpster fire UCLA is? Or does that tell us Chip Kelly knows his seat's really hot at UCLA after a disappointing 2023, and he wants to get out while the getting's good? He lost his quarterback of the future who transferred to Oregon, and the kid Marcus Moore, if I remember, said, or Dante Moore said he wants to go somewhere where he can develop.
Was willing to sacrifice another year of eligibility.
So was the developmental curve that bad at UCLA, or is this just the ramblings of an 18-year-old?
I mean,
all I'm going to say is this. It's not a good look when you get a five-star quarterback. He actually plays, but you kind of screwed it up by yo-yoing him in and out of games. And now he's leaving after a year because he doesn't think he's developing. So Chip Kelly lost his quarterback of the future. The seat is a little hot, but let's face it, not to be mean. When we look at UCLA going to the Big Ten, do we go, yeah, they're ready to rock and roll in the Big Ten? No. We're thinking, could that be a future punching bag in the Big Ten?
Them and Rutgers are going to have a really fun time fighting it out at the bottom. Maybe
Chip looks around and says, I got no shot. I got no shot in the Big Ten. Not at this place. Not at this place. I'm going to get out. I'm still going to make a really good living, and I'll be at Ohio State as an offensive coordinator. But here's my next question. How do we know what kind of offensive coordinator Chip Kelly's going to be now? He was on the edge, or he was on the tip years ago at Oregon, remember? But what was the biggest thing about that offense, Elijah? It played fast. It played supersonic fast. Well, now there's rules in place to stop that type of fast offense. Chip Kelly do a lot of things on offense at UCLA that made you go, wow. I mean, they were good, but they weren't like cutting edge, wow, look at this guy. And we weren't talking about Chip Kelly's offenses at UCLA like we were talking about like what happened last year at UW, or, you know what I mean? We're not talking about UCLA that way.
Great offense don't get held to 7 points against Cal.
Chip Kelly to me, again, was a one-trick pony. He ran an offense super fast to put teams in mismatched situations that they couldn't overcome. But once the rules changed, now he's just a solid head coach with a little bit over 500 record at UCLA?
Yeah.
Right around 500, a little bit over 500.
They were 7-6 this past year.
And the year before was his best year because there was some hot seat talk the year before. And then they win 9 games the year before?
They actually, I think it was his first year they did fairly well. I'll go pull that up right now. I was looking to see if Ohio State's on UCLA's regular season schedule this year.
That'd be fun.
For those wondering, they are not. That would have been juicy. The drama queen and me really wanted to see that.
Absolutely. I mean, this Chip Kelly's time at UCLA, I mean, they were above average, but not great.
He was a game above 500.
There you go.
perennially a game above 500.
2 years ago, was that their best year 2 years ago?
Shoot, they were 8-5 last year. So 2 years ago, they went 8-4. Last year, they went 9-4. Last year's in 2022. Yeah, 2022, 9-4. And then the COVID year, they were 3-4. And his first 2 years at UCLA, he went 3-9 and 4-8.
Yeah, so it wasn't anything wow. UCLA, they were hoping they would hire the guy from Oregon. That guy didn't show up.
Or at minimum, the guy from Philly.
Yeah, that guy didn't show up either. He didn't want the guy from San Francisco. That was a disaster. So I guess the moral of the story is Chip Kelly was a mediocre head coach at UCLA. He's leaving either A, because he doesn't think he doesn't have a chance to win at UCLA, whether it's facilities, whether it's, what they're doing on the revenue side to contribute to the football program, NIL, whatever's going on. Chip doesn't think he can succeed at UCLA. Or B, he's getting out because he knows that the seat's now going to get turned up because, again, they were expecting better than they've gotten from Chip Kelly. Or he's just kind of Chip Kelly and he's a little goofy and he just is doing this because he's Chip Kelly.
He must really like Ryan Day.
Yeah, he must really just want to be an OC. Or I'm thinking he just really wants to get the hell out of Westwood.
That's probably more likely.
Because you just left a head coaching job for an offensive coordinator job. Now, if Kelly goes there and that Ohio State offense goes crazy, he might be able to parlay it into a better Power 5 job. Maybe. So we'll see. Very interesting story that just popped. And obviously we'll get to, right now we're just riffing different avenues because we don't know why. But we'll start reading and finding and wondering and getting our answer to why.
Or at least finding more fun speculation.
Yeah, that's what we do. We fill air with stuff like this. It's what we do for a living. All right, that's what's trending at 2. We'll come back and we will talk some Carolina Panthers and some Super Bowl and some Chip Kelly and Bill O'Brien with our buddy Dimitri Ravenos next as we Dimitri's new podcast, by the way. The name of it's hilarious, and the picture, the image, a bag on the Carolina Panthers fan's head. Really good. I will talk to Dimitri next halftime show here on The Game. All right, halftime show as we're doing what's trending at 2 here on the game. Time to get our buddy Dimitri Ravenos in here. Now, I'm going to tell you, I love the new name of the podcast. What is it?
It is This Team is Killing Us. And the tagline is a show about what the Carolina Panthers do to good people.
I love the tagline. The tagline's better than the name, and I love the name.
Yeah, I agree.
And I love the image. The image is the best.
Yeah, the image, the new logo of the show is a guy wearing blue with a bag on his head with the word "Y" written on it.
God, it's so good. It's so good. Anyway, all right. So, real quick on the Panthers, and we'll move on. We got a ton of things here going on. All right. First of all, you saw David Canales' presser, and I'm not a big fan of you got to win the presser unless you're weird Adam Gase with the creepy eyeballs. What'd you think, though? And again, couching it with you don't win games because you win a presser. But what did you think walking away from the press conference listening to Canales?
I thought he had some very pointed messages for Bryce Young that he was telling to the media. And a couple of the things that jumped out to me is he made the comment that the team's offense is going to become whatever it is Bryce is great at. And then he, made it very clear that not every quarterback's growth curve is the same. Certainly he was answering a question that somebody had asked him, but I also think that Dave Canales wants to make it clear to Bryce Young, who I'm sure he has talked to and said this to privately, but he wants Bryce to see him publicly saying, essentially, I'm going to do all the things for you that Frank Reich would not.
Dimitri, just really quick aside, and then we'll get back on the road. I want to take a little pit stop here at the rest area, and then we'll get back on the road.
Sure.
Here's the thing. In general, this idea that what you brought up is something I always talk about. Shouldn't every offensive coordinator or / offensive-minded head coach build the offense to the strength of the quarterback? I mean, it's so mind-numbing to me when, he's going to play my system. No, you got a guy with a certain specific skill set. Shouldn't you build your offense around his strong, specific skill set?
There is a reason every good offensive coordinator has a playbook that is much bigger than what you will ever see in a single season, right? Like you develop or you find the kind of plays that you really like and you put together a season-long or a single-game plan based on which of those plays your personnel can execute best.
All right, Dimitri Ravenos, Super Bowl, care more about the game or the commercials or the halftime show or just getting liquored up and eating a lot of food?
Well, as you know, Terry, I am a Swiftie, so I am very excited to see what Taylor is going to be wearing. This is the thing, right? Like, as much as the Taylor Swift narrative became what we talked about with the Chiefs this year, I think it overshadowed the fact that we're sort of at the point of their, let's call it championship lifespan, where we're kind of getting bored with them and we're ready to see somebody else, right? That being said, I am like literally bored watching the 49ers. Like I'm not super jazzed about this game, frankly.
I feel like there's not a buzz in general. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think that, to me, I think this is one of the more interesting gambling Super Bowls. But overall, the game itself, I mean, look, at this point, we know that Travis Kelce is one of the best to ever play his position. We know Patrick Mahomes is one of the best to ever play his position. We know Christian McCaffrey is one of the best to ever play his position. There's not really I don't know what is going to surprise us in this game, because even if it is the Chiefs winning this on the back of like old school football, ground and pound and keep the 49ers off the board, well, as much as we know what their passing game is, that's kind of how they've won most of the season. I don't know what's going to blow us away in this game.
All right, Dimitri Ravenos, breaking news. UCLA head coach Chip Kelly is expected to become Ohio State's offensive coordinator after informing the Bruins of his departure.
Can I say what I believe this is very similar to Jeff Hafley leaving Boston College to become the head coach of the Packers? Like, as much as we want to say this is about what the problems are with college football and the NIL era, et cetera, Dude, these are guys beating the posse out of town. Like Chip Kelly was getting fired next year anyway.
That's what we said earlier. We were like, his seat's been turned up and it's hot, and he's getting out because he doesn't want his butt to burn in Westwood, and he wants to run and get out of town. That's one of the scenarios we brought up. Absolutely.
Yeah, look, Nick Saban is gone. Kirby Smart does not, he's not looking for a new offensive coordinator at this point. Dabo Swinney, unless, you've known him for 20 years, you can't get on his staff anyway. Ohio State is kind of the coaching rehab center now. It makes a lot of sense. I think that Chip Kelly probably does still have a lot to offer a team as a head coach, but it's not going to be at UCLA. It's not going to be at a school that's not serious and never has been about football.
And that's the other thing, Dimitri, is also not only is it an indictment on Kelly to a point, but it's also an indictment on UCLA because, to me, if we're making a list of the 5 most underachieving football programs in our lifetime, with all the resources UCLA should have, UCLA should be a hell of a lot better than they are.
I think it tells you a lot about the regionality of this sport, right? LA is big enough that it should be able to handle multiple certainly top 25, if not top 10 college football teams. But the population of California just isn't what the population is of the Carolinas or of the bigger southern states, your Georgias, your Floridas, where that is the dream of a lot of kids growing up. And frankly, California is a place that gets rated for talent by everybody now, not just the West Coast. Like it's an indictment, but also I think that when you say that, we are kind of judging it based on what we know of the SEC versus what the reality is for a program like that.
You and your reality. What's up with you?
I mean, listen, I will tell you, your beloved Maryland Terrapins, I think, are one of the most underachieving programs ever.
I'm
based on
with
what
you.
They should have access.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir there, brother. Don't start me on basketball. I tell you, no, don't. We'll have to punch the dump button. We start talking about Maryland basketball. It drives me crazy. Dimitri Ravetos.
Well, the good news, Terry, is I don't recognize college basketball.
I know. That's why I like talking to you. I don't have to go into that with you because you don't. If I showed you a basketball and a hand grenade, you wouldn't know the difference. That's why I love you deeply.
Yeah, I swear this is true. Last year, Alabama had a really good basketball team. Should have been in contention for a national championship. When they got eliminated, I breathed a sigh of relief because I could stop pretending to care.
Dimitri Ravetos hanging out with us for another minute here on the halftime show. All right, we'll leave you with this other beautiful nugget of NFL information. The New York Jet owner is talking again, Woody Johnson. He's put his coach and his GM on the hot seat.
Yeah, I, for the life of me, don't know why they're coming back next year. Like that, and granted, there has to be a part of Woody Johnson that is guilty, that knows that feels guilty, that knows that forcing Aaron Rodgers on those guys, and also not really having much else going on in that franchise's history. Like, you cannot just pin it on Salah and on the GM. But what has Robert Salah done to earn, what is this, a fifth year as a head coach of that team? That's insane.
They're going to give him one more shot with a healthy Aaron Rodgers and see where it goes. And the last thing, tell the truth. How many hours of NFL Honors did you watch last night?
Zero.
Just as much as I did. Just as much as I did. I can read about the winners.
The smartphone.
Yeah.
In the age of the smartphone, I get updates. I don't have to watch the actual show.
Same here. My phone blew up with all the awards last night, and I could watch a little video snippet. I was good. I was good. I love technology. I love technology. All right, Dimitri Ravetos. One more time, the name of the new podcast, my friend.
It is called This Team is Killing Us, a podcast about what the Carolina Panthers do to good people.
I love that. I swear to God. It will never not make me laugh. All right, my friend.
Good. That's the idea.
I appreciate you. We'll bug you again next week, Bob.
All right, talk to you next week.
All right, we'll see you, pal. Come back in here. Today is February the 9th. It's the greatest day in the history of the world. We'll talk about it next. Brought to you by 1-800-GOT-JUNK here on The Game. Time for the greatest day in the history of the world, brought to you by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. All right, on this day in 1966, the NHL for years was 6 teams. They're called the original 6. You know this. You did a lot of pre and post for the Preds. There were 6 teams until 1966. Then the NHL doubled in size to 12, awarding franchises to L.A., Minneapolis, St. Paul, which lost that team temporarily to Dallas till they got back a team. That team should have never left Minneapolis, St. Paul. No offense to the Stars in Dallas. It's not being mean to Dallas. They always should be the Minnesota North Stars. What a cool name that was.
Such a significantly better hocky environment, too,
Yes.
in Minnesota than it is in Dallas.
They
do a
love
good
their
job in
puck.
Dallas, but, dude.
Yeah, they love their puck in Minneapolis, St. Paul. That was a wrong. Never should have moved that team. But anyway, Minnesota's got a team back. Also, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, St. Louis. All got little known fact that no one will care about except me, and I'll force you to care about it for a minute. That team to Philadelphia was going to be awarded to Baltimore. At the last minute, went to Philadelphia.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool story. So anyway, the NHL doubled to 12 teams.
And the Maple Leafs never won a cup again.
No, which is really weird. It's one of the iconic franchises in hockey, and they can't get out. They can't get out of the first or second round.
Can't win if there's more than 6 teams in the league.
It's crazy. Also, this hurt my heart because I'm a huge Sugar Ray Leonard boxer. I love Sugar Ray Leonard. He's my favorite boxer of all time. But, he had detached retina, and like all these boxers, they start to go out of their prime. They don't know when to stop. On this day in 1991, Terry Norris knocked down Sugar Ray Leonard twice and beat him up over 12 rounds at Madison Square Garden. It was Leonard's final fight. Norris won a unanimous decision. Leonard in his prime would have beat Norris like a drum, but Leonard was way past his prime. Again, had the issue with the eye. Just tough times. 1992, Magic Johnson, playing for the first time since announcing his retirement on November 7th, scores a game-high 25 points, hands out 9 dimes, leads the West to an All-Star Game victory. Very controversial at the time. There were some players who did not want to play in that game with Magic Johnson because he had HIV. Karl Malone. It was a thing. It really was a thing. That's one of those things we look at today and go, really? But it was a thing. It truly was. And another thing that was a thing that now we kind of look back and go, that really was a thing? Because this was a thing. 2014, Missouri All-America defensive end Michael Sam comes out to the nation saying that he's gay. And that was a thing. And he dropped in the draft like a stone to the 7th round.
After being an SEC Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Defense Player of the Year.
Yes, Defensive Player of the Year. That
really
was
good
the
Mizzou
thing.
Teams.
Today, I don't think it affects his draft stock at all. Back then, teams didn't want to draft him. And he dropped to the 7th round. I believe it was the Rams who took him in the 7th round.
St. Louis Rams, also a thing that's no longer a thing.
No longer a thing. So that's the history of the world. Greatest day in the history of the world, brought to you by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. All right, real quick, I want to bring in my Vanderbilt correspondent live from Nashville, Elijah Campbell. Now, you covered Vandy for years. You grew up watching Vandy. We talked to Chris Lee earlier, and Chris was fantastic, just saying, look, the problem with Vanderbilt sports is the administration has no idea what they're doing, and they don't put a emphasis on it at all, like other teams in the SEC at their universities. That's the problem. How dysfunctional is this mess at Vandy?
It is not just a dysfunctional mess the way you might think of. I'm trying to get an idea in mind of a dysfunction like Texas A&M. They're more recently dysfunctional.
That's dysfunctional for passion.
For passion and impatience, right? This is dysfunctional due to decades of apathy. Between the school administration and the athletics. Because as long as Vanderbilt is a functioning institution, they will never prioritize sports the same way its fellow members of the SEC prioritize athletics. No matter how hard Candace Story-Lee, as the AD, wants to make it closer to other SEC schools. She tries. Lord will, God bless her. She's got Ted Lasso-like enthusiasm, and she really thinks she can work. She played basketball there at Vanderbilt. She's been in that athletic department forever. She has seen what it has looked in good times and bad times. And in a changing NIL landscape, they know they have to raise a lot of money from a fan base that just doesn't have a lot of bodies. Deep pockets, yes, because you graduate from Vanderbilt, then you have to pay for going to Vanderbilt.
Yes.
And oftentimes that degree is really, really useful. But does that money get spent wisely? Does it get spent in terms of maybe following the rules a little too much, not using it to your advantage recruiting-wise, which is why Tennessee's in trouble right now. Vandy would never. They know the rules better than anybody because they follow them, not because they know ways to get around them. They are the ultimate rule followers. They don't want trouble. They don't want the NCAA sniffing around for things because it's a bad look, because this is this high, mighty, ivory tower, prestigious university. And if someone tells you they go to Vanderbilt, you automatically have an idea of them in your head if you're living in Nashville. But not to say anything bad about like Vanderbilt grads, but like it's an educational institution above anything else. And it's always going to be that way. And yes, well, like Memorial Gym, the basketball arena they play, it is an artifact, but it's one of my favorite places to watch a basketball game. Yes, they're going to keep it the way it is for as long as possible because it is such a historical gym. But also, it would require spending a lot of money to get a new one. And they just don't care enough to do that, you know? And so that's another reason, you know, like the football field. This past year, that stadium, when you'd watch games there, like they had a nationally televised game against Georgia on CBS. And you know what you saw in both end zones? Bleeping cranes, man, because they've been dragging their feet on touching that stadium. It hadn't been touched, not a single renovation before this year since 1984. Man. It's just decades. It's decades of apathy.
And, you know, that, again, what I talked about earlier, you know, like, see, it'd be great if Greg Sankey gave them a call and said, look, guys, we're not expecting you to be really, really good. We're expecting you to at least try to be decent. Would you do that for us? But you keep them in the SEC because, again, Vanderbilt is a prestigious academic institution. And, you know, they bring a lot of other things to the table to the SEC. So, and plus, every conference needs some punching bags, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I just want to get your perspective. All right. I want to also get you talking to our buddy Larvadan, Gage Larvadan. I think I've got the name right.
That's right.
Wide receiver transfer. Here is Elijah, a few minutes with Gage yesterday at the football complex.
All right. Elijah Campbell from the Post-Game Show here with Gage Larvadan, transfer wide receiver from the Miami of Ohio, the Fighting Ben Roethlisbergers, as I like to refer to them every now and then. But man, nice to have you here. Good to have you in Columbia. What's your impression of Columbia, South Carolina so far?
It's nice. I'm from Louisiana, so it kind of gives me like a mixture of like New Orleans and Baton Rouge. It's like a somewhat city area, somewhat kind of little country area. You know what I mean? So it's the best of both worlds. I like it.
What's your I guess early impressions of the new wide receivers coach, Coach Coley?
Oh, I love Coach Coley. Like I was telling him earlier, it's kind of one of those things when you meet someone, you automatically know, like, yeah, this is the guy for me. You know what I mean? Obviously, Coach Stepp recruited me. He's a great guy as well. He's one of those things where it's like, when you know, you know. Right. But Coach Coley's a great guy. He's about his business, and he's gonna be part of my success this year for sure.
And what about, I guess, this offense? Do you think you can come in and really help improve on it right away? Because there's a lot of I guess departing pieces that help this offense, especially at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I mean, the wide receiver position was basically wide open, and that's kind of, you know, part of the reasoning why I chose South Carolina for sure. There's always competition everywhere you go. You know, no one's afraid to compete. It's the SEC, you're going to compete wherever you go. So, I mean, it's a great opportunity for me. Like you said, we had a 1,000-yard receiver last year. He's gone. Another receiver who entered the transfer portal as well. So, but the good thing about it is it's a lot of hungry guys. You know what I mean? A lot of guys who are ready to establish and prove themselves amongst the world, to be honest. So.
Are there any wide receivers in the league that you kind of watch extra film on to emulate? We were talking to Jared Brown earlier. He was watching a lot of Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill film to kind of add things to his route tree.
Yeah, we watched that together. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, kind of, especially. I mean, he's a little taller than me, but we both have the same kind of body style, same type of body for sure. So we kind of. For the most part, it would be foolish for me to go watch A.J. Brown. You know what I mean? I can't do what A.J. Brown does. So, like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, you know what I mean? Those kind of smaller guys. So, that's kind of who I look at. You know, at the end of the day, I try to play my style of football, but, you know, there's always people that you look up to.
And one of my favorite things about your transfer path here, it's from a league like the MAC to the SEC. And that's kind of like a trend in modern college football, too, is a lot of guys play in the MAC and end up getting to move up to the SEC. What's that transition, you think, going to be like for you? How are you going to be able to make that transition from playing at a conference that has a ton of talent? It's just maybe not as nationally recognized as like the SEC.
I mean, I don't think it's as tough as people would make it seem, for sure. It's football at the end of the day, you know what I mean? I have teammates at Miami Ohio who can come here and play right now. And that's I say that with the utmost respect to all my teammates that are here right now. So it's just football at the end of the day. And my journey to get here was more than just Miami, Ohio. A lot of people don't know I signed Division II out of high school. And then at the last second, I went to my first school, Southeastern Louisiana, which was a great place. I have teammates there who can play here. You know what I mean? So it's just about, taking advantage of your opportunities and then just being the best person that you can be. You know what I mean? And so, but to answer your question, it's not as difficult as people would make it seem. I'm getting it as of now.
Yeah.
Sure.
And last question now. I saved this one for when David got here.
Okay.
Who's winning the Super Bowl? I'm not going to tell you who he's a fan of. So we're going to get
actually the one I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Who's winning the Super Bowl? I got the 49ers, man. I don't think the Chiefs are going to beat them twice.
Okay, so you have already on David Foniger's A+ list. So, Gage, appreciate your time talking to me, and looking forward to watching you play next year, man. It's going to be a fun year.
Yes, sir. It will.
Confident man. I like it. Confident man.
He is.
Make Cloninger happy, too, by picking the 49ers.
So Cloninger's going to write about him a little more favorably.
Glowing.
Yes.
Glowing.
He could have his worst game, and
Thoughts.
and
Doesn't
Dave will
matter.
be an optimist.
Yeah, David will be like, nah, but did you see the way he ran on and off the field with that hustle?
Reminds me of Debo Samuel.
All right, we'll come back in here. Firehouse subtext the hour at 803-404-6100. Wrap this baby up. Get you ready for the postgame show with Elijah and Jay. That's coming up next. Halftime show with Terry Ford rolling. One more segment for the week here on The Game. Time for the Firehouse Sub text of the hour. 803-404-6100. From Marv. Marv says, referencing Justin Stepp leaving for Illinois to be the wide receiver coach at Illinois. This is for the first time I've lost confidence in Coach Beamer. How do you lose Coach Stepp? This is an L from Marv. Marv,
does Marv say why it's an L?
No, Marv just said it's an L.
Well, tell us why, Marv.
Marv didn't tell you why.
Well, I mean...
Marv just feels like it's an L. Why are you being so nasty to Marv?
I'm not being nasty.
You,
I mean,
you come
why
in
is he
here,
being...
you break in, you hit microphones on, you start disrespecting
where's
Marv.
Tyler?
I like Marv's work during Home Alone.
Yeah,
The Sticky Bandits.
Yeah, Marv was good.
Marv, what are you doing?
Basically, you're disrespecting a high level movie star.
Don't move, Marv. Don't move. No, I mean, no, I'm serious, because I've seen a lot of that today. So I don't mean to come in and immediately act this way, because I didn't know you were going to read that. But I mean, just Marv. I mean, seriously, expound. Why? I mean, why? What? I'm not disagreeing with him per se, but to just throw that out there without giving you any basis for it seems.
I guess anyone that look, I get it that Justin Stepp is from here. He's a local guy, grew up here, and all that stuff. I understand that, and sometimes we're protective of our own automatically.
No, I mean,
right?
As I've told you, I was born 2 blocks away, man.
Yeah, I've seen the video.
Ooh,
yeah.
You know, I'm not. No, there's no video. They didn't have video back then, dude.
The little Jay Phillips in the incubator.
They didn't have.
But so I understand some of it might be just protecting, the local guy, right? It could be some of that, to be fair.
Okay.
We see that wherever we grow up.
And again, I'm from here, so
yeah. But some people do that automatically.
Okay.
Some don't, but some do. I mean, I've lived it. When I was in Baltimore, he was a Baltimore guy. What does that mean? Just means a Baltimore guy. Well, he was terrible.
Yeah. I mean,
but,
so I again.
I'm not saying Stepp's terrible. I'm just saying we automatically sometimes take up for our own because they're our own.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to hear. I would love for Marv to. Again, I'm not trying to be combative, but I mean to just say I've lost confidence in Beamer and it's an L, and you don't explain why.
So that's why you need the why, because maybe it's as simple as I know the Stepp family. We grew up together.
Oh, okay.
Whatever. That's what I'm saying. My point is sometimes people will say that kind of stuff, and it's totally personal. If you want to look, I think we all would say adding James Coley to this staff is an upgrade.
Well, it's certainly a very good hire based on the resume and the reaction.
The resume is phenomenal. The guy's an ace recruiter, excellent wide receiver coach. So you add a guy that is really good at what he does. Mm-hmm. Now you have Justin Stepp. No one's saying that Justin Stepp isn't good at what he does, but this guy is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
It's a home run upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're Shane Beamer, you want to keep Justin Stepp. So you go and say, we want to move you to the tight end room.
Well, I don't want to I'm going to go ahead and say this now, and this will just be something that we piggyback off of, because I was going to say this on the show with Elijah, but they fired Montario Hardesty.
Sure.
They didn't fire Justin Stepp.
And that's what I said earlier on the show. I said, look, and I brought the same thing up. I said, look, Montario Hardesty was fired.
I mean, Justin, basically, I just want to tell Marv, Justin left.
Right. Justin wasn't fired.
So I don't know why this is losing faith in Shane. Shane kept him, but he did get an upgrade at the position. He wanted Justin to hang around because he knows what Justin does mean. Justin left.
Right, exactly.
So I just don't get where Marv is saying this is on Shane.
For whatever Justin's reason was, he didn't want to be the tight end coach at South Carolina.
Right.
So, Shane kept him with the idea, I'm going to put you in the tight end room and you can help the tight ends become better receivers. Justin either Justin was like, look, I want to be a wide receiver coach, and I think that's what we see, or Justin might have looked at it as a demotion to himself or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
But Justin Stepp made the decision to leave.
Yes. Justin left.
And that's what I said earlier. It's like Justin left. He was not let go. He wasn't forced out.
Right.
Justin made a decision to leave for whatever his reasons.
Right. Again, Montario was fired.
Right. And that's a different ball game altogether.
I hope people see the difference. It's a very clear, stark difference.
It's just the idea that you had the opportunity to get a really good assistant coach.
Yes.
And you brought him in.
Yes.
And you didn't want to lose Justin, so you basically said, I'm going to put you in this position now. Justin just did not want to do that for whatever the reason it is.
So
Make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and that's why I say I think this is on Justin.
Well, it's just Justin's decision to go.
Yeah.
No,
And Justin could have told his agent to not shop for jobs.
And Justin
or
has
not field calls.
And you saw the Gamecock Central Post. Justin has shopped for jobs. Yeah. This isn't the first time.
So again, Marv, I don't know you, Marv, and I'm not trying to beat up on you, but you provide zero context for saying the things that you said.
Right, but Marv, to be fair, you were great in Home Alone.
Yeah,
you were really good in Home Alone.
Marv.
Sticky Bandits.
Marv?
Are we doing this picking thing later?
Yeah, 5:15.
All right, I might have to come in earlier and do it because I have.
There's only one way for you to beat me.
Really?
Yeah.
For me to win, for you to hit everything and you hit nothing?
Yeah. So I'm pulling for you.
Oh, no, you're not, you liar.
As far as you know.
Hey, Elijah, he's not pulling for me. You know that. Post-game show's next.